Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of Ensuring Course Readings Are Accessible to Students. My name is Liz Svoboda. I'm an Instruction Outreach Librarian, and I've been working with ODE and ITS to help with this session and help faculty understand the necessity of making a lot of their works more accessible to students. And my backup facilitator today, Crystal Tosh, will introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Tosh. I am the Digital Accessibility Analyst over in ITS. And I have been working also with like the libraries and ODE as well, just trying to get everything compliant before the April 2026 deadline. So we're excited that you're all here and interested in learning about PDFs and course readings.
All right. So we'll have time at the very end to answer any questions. So please hold them there. And if you want to put them in the chat, just as a reminder, feel free to do that as well. So today we're going to talk about the issue, the looming deadline, as well as just the number of things that are currently inaccessible in Canvas. We're going to talk about finding stable links and creating descriptive links in Canvas. Then talking about how to ensure documents are accessible by using tools with Adobe Acrobat as well as UJ Panorama. And then finally kind of touch on creating your own documents, which actually Crystal has done a couple of workshops on about headings and other kind of formatting things that would be important to use. So the issue is ODE, Nick Gaspar, came to a librarians meeting in May earlier this year and reported that there were 1.4 million issues with PDFs in general in Canvas, and that there were about 18,000 scanned PDFs in Canvas courses, which we went a little bit like this. It's a little bit shocking, but actually not all that surprising because a lot of our faculty we know use materials that are not necessarily electronically available easily. So the easiest way to kind of mitigate this PDF accessibility is to not actually upload a PDF at all. It is instead to use the library's quick search to find the article, ebook, or film if you're using it from a library database. If you're using something that is not available through the library, again, creating a stable link out to that is probably going to be the easiest. We're suggesting that you use the quick search because the majority of library content is available through quick search and is found through quick search. And you can actually, there's a permalink icon next to each and every result in there that will give you a specific item record page to that URL. So you're not giving the students a full results list, you're just taking them to one individual item. You also don't need to worry about adding a proxy string because the links that are on that record page are actually going to prompt the students to actually log into the library content. So you don't have to mess around with kind of creating a link at all. So what this looks like. So if we go to, I did a search for a video manuscripts of Timbuktu on the quick search here. Next to each and every single link is going to be this permalink icon. I want to make this the available online one. So I can grab this permalink here and it will open up and I can copy and paste this or copy this permalink and then use this to create the item itself. Okay. Um, then I will, then once what this link does is if I pull it up here, um, it will bring back a link that looks exactly like this. So there's no extra results or anything that's coming through here. There's no back to results page or anything. It just takes you directly to this video. This also works for things like journal articles where they can either download the PDF or if they wanted to access an HTML version of the content, they can do that as well. Same things with things like ebooks, right? Where they can get the available online and go through the actual databases in order to access the content. This also gives them students a kind of stable place or an expected place to look, right? They don't have to figure out where to find how to download things on JSTOR versus ProQuest versus Springer. It's all kind of coming through this same format. So this is why we're suggesting the quick search as a really easy option in order to do this. Okay. If for some reason It's an item is not coming up in quick search or you're having a little bit of trouble dealing with it. Some of our archival sources aren't easily found through quick search. There's some business sources like a lot of company data and statistics may not necessarily come back through quick search as easily. You can go into the databases and find permanent links that way as well. They're often labeled a couple different things, permalink, stable link, document URL. You can use a DOI, but definitely test it and kind of look for the proxy, and it may not lead back to that original database you found the article in. Um, if there is no permalink kind of labeled anywhere or you don't see a DOI, you can try to copy the browser, the address in the browser bar, but again, test it out in a different browser, and again, you'll probably have to add a proxy on it. Um, so this little string align here basically will prompt that login to the library resources because again, our students are paying for this through their tuition and fees. Not everybody has access to it. And in order to make sure that everything works correctly and that they have that access to it, that proxy has to prompt them to log in. So we're asking you to maybe do a little bit of work to create a URL that looks a little something like this. Okay. So these are 6 different examples. Some of them I created off campus, or the database has actually put the proxy in front of the URL, the stable URL. Sometimes if you're off campus and you're grabbing a link, the proxy will kind of fall in the middle of the link. So it really depends on the different databases on where you can find it. And again, we're going to jump into EBSCO here. EBSCO has actually done a refresh on all of their interfaces, and this is the new reading pane from EBSCO for both ebooks as well as journal articles. And up at the top here, there's a weird way to share items, and you can create a link down here, but again, it does not have that um, proxy because I'm on campus right now, so I don't need it because we have given all of our databases like the university IPs, so they know that we are on campus, that we're at U of M Flint. So obviously we should have access to this. Okay, so in this case, I would need to go through, grab this, but then add that proxy onto it. Similarly with things like ProQuest, on the other hand, I believe will, once it loads, um, you can grab the copy URL up at the top here, and it doesn't tell you what it is, but it's copied to my clipboard. If you actually wanted to see what it looks like, you can go to all options and then it adds it up there. Okay. But there's a lot of variation in the databases about where these stable links live. So again, sometimes it may take a little bit of time to find them. And then finally, with something like Springer or Science Direct, you could use the Springer link up at the top, but again, adding that DO or the proxy onto it. There's also towards the end of a lot of these results is a stable DOI link as well. So again, there's options, but where they live depends on what database you're going into versus that quick search where that permalink is there the entire time. It never changes. So that's again why we're suggesting quick search as a really easy option for this. Um, so when we're actually putting these links into Canvas, we need to create them as a descriptive link, okay? A descriptive link, you typically will use as a page in Canvas. This could also be in an assignment or anything else where you have that kind of rich text box. And they should not actually spell out the address, right? It should also not be something like click here to access or something like that. We really should include something like the title or maybe even the full citation of an article or a book in order to be completely accessible. Because when you're using a screen reader, if you keep hearing click here to access, it gets a little bit boring over time, and having a screen reader read out an entire URL at you is just not a pleasant experience. So, what it looks like in Canvas is something like this. So I've opened up a page here that I already have. I've got a descriptive link up at the top saying that it is, the full citation. I could probably even just, read the what is or hyperlink the what is manuscripts. I do like to have a more full citation just in case something breaks for students because again, technology is great until it stops working. So definitely try to give them a little bit more context than just the title, in my opinion. So again, I've got, the full citation to the journal database here. Okay. Now you'll notice that I have a non-descriptive link here. And if I go back to just the module page, Yuja is actually dinging me for this, right? So if I click this here, and if I view the report either here or if I go into and edit the screen on my weekly readings, it will show the little accessibility guy down here will tell me, hey, I have a major issue that a link should be descriptive. So I can fix the issue either through Yuja and replace it here, or if I wanted to just do this right off the bat, I could go in to my link options and edit the text here as well. So we're not going to fix it just in case I need this in the future. All right, so creating descriptive links is pretty straightforward. Where it gets a little bit dicier is actually creating accessible content. So there are some basic accessibility that constitute major issues in Yuja Panorama that you're going to kind of get dinged for a lot. Yuja just kind of splits things into major and minor issues. So focusing on the major issues that kind of come back repeatedly is going to get you to a more accessible document faster. Okay. So the four kind of major areas that you will see are going to be tagged content, which is going to kind of ensure that there's a logical reading order and kind of tag items for a screen reader to say, hey, this is a heading, this is a paragraph, this is a table, and it will kind of adjust how it reads in order for uh, the person to understand a little bit better. Okay. Optical character recognition ensures that all text is readable by a computer. This is incredibly important if you have actually like had a physical book and scanned it into a PDF format. What that scan does is it just takes an image, right? So OCR will actually take that image and try to basically translate all those pixels together into actual text, into code, so that it is readable by a computer or a screen reader. Um, Alternative text, again, ensures that all images and graphs are described for a screen reader and other assistive technologies. And then finally, color contrast. And this is going to ensure that users with either color blindness or other visual disabilities are able to read the text without even use of a screen reader, possibly, or that they're able to see what's going on. Okay. So UJS Panorama is attached through Canvas, and you can fix quite a few things with the UJA program. Sometimes though, you might have to go through Adobe Acrobat to actually fix other things. Adobe Acrobat is the PDF editor that we all have access to as U of M Flint faculty, students, and staff through the Adobe Creative Cloud. Okay. So I would suggest kind of using Panorama first, especially for things that you already have loaded into your Canvas courses, looking for those severe and major issues, and then trying to fix them with either Panorama or possibly going to Adobe. But the one big caveat here is that you will not be able to fix every single error within a PDF. It's just not possible some of the time, especially some of the minor issues. And we'll show you some examples of that in just a minute here. Okay. All right. So you'll notice that attached to a couple of these PDFs that I have listed up here, we've got an untagged syllabus. And so this is something that I got probably about 10 years ago from a faculty member. And if I click on the user report, it comes back with an accessibility of 0. Okay. So if I want to actually view this and kind of see what the report says, it will say that it's untagged so that it can't read anything. It doesn't know what is a paragraph. It doesn't know what is a header. It doesn't know what is a table or anything like that. So if I actually wanted to fix this issue, it gives me a couple of different options. And it explains a little bit about what I want. And since this doesn't really have any of the complex kind of content, so like math formulas, for example, I'm going to go ahead and use the reconstructed tag PDF and add change and then apply change. And it will take a little bit of time, or possibly, come on, it might give me an error that says I could not remediate with the changes that are here right now. So this might lead me to actually either go in and with my Word document and edit this, or go through Adobe PDF or Adobe Acrobat to actually work with this. Okay. A tagged PDF will still have issues. So I went through and I tagged this before this session, and it's still giving me an accessibility of 0 report, even though it does have some additional options here, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But if I want to view the report, it is giving me 875 minor options, as well as 3 major. Okay, so a lot of the minor options that you'll start to see here, checking reading order and font size is smaller than 9 points. Some of this is not easy to fix or can't really be fixed at all. And you might be asking yourselves, why are there like so many multiple 9 points? It's because how a PDF tags itself is it doesn't just assume that, oh, all of this uh paragraph down here is one big paragraph. Oh no, there's a formatting difference here. Like this is italicized text, so this must be different. This is a link, so this is different, right? Um, when it auto tags, it does this a lot. So again, a lot of these minor issues you probably won't be able to fix, especially like the font size. And we've actually Carson from ODE get is trying to reprogram you just so that the smaller than 9 points is not a thing anymore. And so we won't be dinged as much for small text because again, with PDFs, you can magnify within a reader fairly easily, right? So that isn't necessarily as big of an issue as some of the other things. All right, so we've got 875 minor, we have 3 major. Okay, so there's a few things. If you click on these, you'll notice that we have the items do not have an alternative description. Okay, so um, this is a PDF that in earlier sessions, I actually went through and added alternative text to this large graph up here. But you'll notice this one is it's kind of breaking up this one graph into 3 smaller images. It kind of, when it went through and automatically tried to tag it, which is a form of AI, by the way, um, it didn't do a great job because it's a dumb computer program that doesn't understand what a graph looks like without being told that it's a graph. So this might be a major issue that I actually want to go into Adobe Acrobat and try to fix myself and retag this whole thing as an image rather than trying to describe, oh, this is like the was it the y-axis of the graph. This is like the actual clump of data, and this is a part of the x-axis of the graph. Forgive me if I've screwed those up. It's been a long time since I've taken geometry or whatever, algebra, whatever there was graphs in. Um, so if this might be something I have to go in, and this is actually something where you could, again, go in and choose and upload media here to try to fix this yourself. Okay. Okay. Um, so let me actually show you a scanned issue with a severe issue because there are some severe issues that come forward. So again, we're seeing an accessibility report here, and we have, again, one severe issue that this document is scanned, right? There's no other issues there, but it can tell that this document is scanned. And I will fully mea culpa, I did not do a great job when I was scanning this book kind of intentionally, right? So this is something where if you try to fix the issue, again, it's going to try to reconstruct it in a certain way. I would suggest the PDF tag or this one that's a little bit more simple because there aren't any math formulas in this particular one. But this is also something where I might go back through in Adobe and actually try to fix this by cropping pages and working with it a little bit more. Because um, with the panorama fix here, in the accessibility report, it's still at 0, even though I tried to fix that major severe issue. But Panorama didn't do a great job, and I'm still having to read, you know, sideways basically with this. They didn't, and they found a lot of major and minor issues, 31 major, and there's not like that the document is missing a title, there's no heading structure, it doesn't have alternative descriptions for things. So there's a lot of fixing that I would have to go through and do here within Yuja to try to make this better. And off the bat, Yuja didn't do a great job in, turning the pages 90 degrees like you can do in Adobe Acrobat. Okay. All right, so let's actually switch over to Adobe here. And I do see questions coming through, but we'll talk about those in just a second. Okay, so if we remember this um, syllabus that I looked at earlier, with Adobe, you're going to be looking at a few different tools. In the All Tools uh, menu over here, the ones that you're going to be looking for, and these might actually fall into the kind of view more section. I pulled them up just because I use them all the time. Edit a PDF is going to be really useful. So you can actually go through and edit things and move boxes around and stuff. It's not formatted, again, kind of like a Word document where you can like really mess with the formatting. It's all in these little text box that you're using. Okay. Another one you're probably going to want to use is scan and OCR. This would actually go through and scan the whole document to kind of try to identify text and also correct any text that's coming through. And we'll show that in just a second. And then the last one is going to be prepare for accessibility. And this is where you can go and add alternative text. It will try to find any figures, and apparently there's no figure information for me to display, which is weird because that is totally an image up at the top. You can fix your reading order. You can also do a full, and you can automatically tag a PDF as well. You can also check for accessibility. So this will run a report very similar to UJA's, which will give an accessibility checker. Um, so it's saying that it failed the tagging. There's a couple of things I would need to check manually. So like color contrast isn't checked by Adobe, and then the reading order isn't either. Again, there's some tagging options that I would need to fix, and some of these things it'll kind of pull back and say, hey, this item failed to tag content, right? Um, and so if I click on this, it'll actually kind of pull back items that need to be addressed. So I can go through and look at the actual tags that are on this document and try to fix them. Okay. It'll also bring back issues of alternative text, which there are some apparently some elements here that don't have alternative text. And so these images here that are already tagged, I would need to go and try to fix. And then finally, there's some table issues down as well, which it will talk about that there are no headers in one of these tables that I'm looking at here. So I might try to think, does this actually need to be listed as formatted as a table, or could I change it to a list format? Okay, to make it a little bit easier. I will say that, like with a lot of Adobe products, if you guys are familiar with Photoshop or InDesign or anything like that, there's a pretty high learning curve when it comes to Adobe Acrobat. I will not say that I'm an expert or I've reached the top of that like understanding or curve, but it is pretty. It starts to get a little bit easier as you use it more and more. But let me show you the actual tag structure. So over on the far side over here, there's this cute little sales tag here. And this is actually where you can like go through and see that there's a document. It will say, what's my header one? It'll say, oh, this is listed as a table, right? What's my header twos? What's listed as a paragraph? So I can go through and either edit these individual items here and kind of make sure that they're coming in as a list. And under the table here, I can see that this is a table row, and there's a table header and how it's using the table headers in here. So you can kind of get in here and actually edit things as well in the accessibility tagging structure. This is also where you would see the reading order for things. So you'll see that it's trying to read this image up here, and I can kind of go through and move things along. So if some reason I didn't want uh, the University of Michigan Flint hold on. University of Michigan Flint to be red first, I could move it all the way down to the bottom if I really wanted to, right? So you can actually mess with structure of things within the tag pages over here as well. Okay. Um, let's go back to that really horrible scan that I did. So earlier, you'll see that I've gone through and I've edited this a little bit with this first one. I can go through and back into um, edit a PDF. It will go kind of page by page, but on the second page here, I can actually rotate the pages, and I can also, where's my crop? Crop the page. so that I take out a lot of this extra content here so that it looks a little bit better. Okay. This is also where I would go through and do a scan and OCR of this entire page and or all of these pages. And it takes a little bit of time. But scan and OCR will actually do some flipping and things for you, so you don't necessarily have to go through and edit everything or do all those notations and editing. And then I should have just asked it to do one page. Okay, so it's done all my pages. And in this case, I can go through and it will ask me to recognize the text. And anything that is highlighted in this kind of red box, and you'll see as I scroll through, it's starting to read quite a bit of things. I would go through and I can click on things and I can try to guess what the word is. And I can say, yes, this is association versus uh, this is definitely not Pinon. This is probably Pearson, right? So it's trying its best and it's usually pretty good, but there's sometimes things that just aren't great about this. And really the reason we want to make sure that OCR happens is that if I have something that isn't OCR, so for example, if I wanted to copy this text here, let me open up Notepad. What it's doing is, ooh, actually I did this earlier. If I paste it in here, this is what it's actually reading, right? So instead of numerous studies on children's reading preferences, of which only a few have been, right? So this is what the actual code, this is what the actual computer thinks the text is encoding. And really that's not great. So this is what, without that OCR uh, going through it, this is what a screen reader would try to read out. Not great. Okay. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Adobe Acrobat. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to try to actually go through and work this all. And it takes a lot of time in order to do this. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, the one reason you really might want to go through and put in the work to make your PDFs as accessible as possible is because Panorama has this amazing function to create alternative formats to that PDF. And it allows students, especially with things like dyslexia or ADHD, or not even just, who people might be blind or hard, might have vision issues, but other types of disabilities, to really read and access text in a lot of different ways. And again, it really only works for PDFs that works well for PDFs that have been tagged and have that OCR kind of capability on it. So to show you what this looks like, and we already gave you a little bit of a snapshot. But if I'm going to click on Stewart here, um, it gives me a couple of different options here for things like an immersive reader or a gradient reader. I can create an audio podcast out of this too, to download and say, listen to the reading on my commute to school, right? I really like this immersive reader and the gradient reader just because, again, for people who may have reading disabilities. And actually, hold on a second. Let me pause my share and make sure. Let me do this. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna. Okay. Making sure I'm sharing sound. Sorry. Because the immersive reader will
279 https://doi.org/10.1017/hia.2020.18 published online by Cambridge University Press.
switch this up here to David's voice.
What's in the Manuscripts of Timbuktu? A survey of the contents of 31 private libraries. Charles C. Stewart. Copyright abstract. The Arabic manuscripts of Timbuktu have received considerable publicity during the
So I can actually see this, and I can do things with text preferences. So I can like pull it down if I really wanted to. I can change the font. I can actually have like blue themes so that like if I prefer a dark mode versus a light mode, I can do that. I can also, kind of highlight different parts of speech. Now, this is a little bit more, I think, for a younger audience than college age, but there's some really added benefits to something like the immersive reader. The gradient reader is, again, another one that I enjoy, especially for someone who maybe doesn't need that auditory thing, but it will break up the text in different colors so that, you can kind of keep more attention to it. This is something that I know quite a few of my dyslexic students that I know enjoy. And you can, again, kind of look at different color schemes and and upload the color shift so that's more frequent or less frequent as well. There's some things that you can kind of do with this, which is really nice. All right. So again, depending on your student population, you may have to do a little bit more work with your PDF content and other things. But I will say that it it is a really big lift. So again, if you're able to push students out to an HTML version a little bit easier, that's great. This is also something to think about with your own documents that you're creating, right? So that syllabus that I had from 2016 was definitely created on Microsoft Word, and but it wasn't created in a way that had headings, that had tables kind of correctly done. So in order to do this, the Microsoft tools, and there's a Grackle extension that you can load in for Google products. So there's a different one for Google Docs, for Excel, or sorry, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides that will actually check for accessibility during creation. If you are doing this, always download a PDF or save as a PDF to keep that accessibility there, right? Because if you print a PDF, it basically creates an image just like if you'd scanned a book. And that is just going to be a collection of pixels that have no meaning to any computer program to them. So just to give you an idea of what Grackle looks like. So I'm in this lovely Google Slides here, Grackle Slides. I'm going to launch it. It's going to automatically do a accessibility check on my end. It's a little bit cleaner and a little bit more simplistic than both Yuja and Adobe, but it does a fairly decent job of checking again against some of those really major issues. So I've got a title, I've passed on slides, I've passed on a table because I don't really think I have one. Oh, but it's saying there's an image that should have alternative text. And if I click on it, it will say this is the one that I need to fix. So I can go up to say format image options up here. Come on. The heck? Sorry. I can go up to format options and then add an alt text. So for library logo, for example, right? And if I go back into Grackle and launch it again, it will tell me that that one has been fixed. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. It's probably copyrighted. Okay, there it goes. So again, it doesn't say the slide 1 has been tagged, and then on slide 3, there's another issue here that I need to tag this image, which I thought I had, but anyway. There's also some issues of like fine print, so maybe there's some text on a box here, right? That is a little bit too small, and I might want to up the font size there. And then this other one down here is that inline style changes may lack permanent meaning. So for example, like the screen reader won't like read bold permalink, bold staple link. That'll cut that any kind of emphasis will be lost in a screen reading capability. And then this empty trailing line should be removed. It's just kind of again, so that there's no skipping with the paragraph or no skipping with the screen reader. However, these are really minor ones that I don't necessarily wouldn't necessarily have to fix all that time. The one that thing that it doesn't check, which Crystal has reported to them, is that you'll notice that this one has a live URL in it instead of the descriptive link over here, right? So again, knowing what we know about accessibility and that, these URLs probably shouldn't be hyperlinked for the screen reader because it will duplicate it. I can go ahead and just remove that link and again, be there. It also gives you the option in Grackle here to mess with your reading order. So if you did want to move this around, you could, as well as in between the text box, as well as other things that are going on here. So, okay. And you can even export to a PDF this way, the same way that you can with your file structure. Okay. So takeaways. Create descriptive links to online readings whenever possible. It's the path of least resistance for us to kind of, again, make our content as accessible as possible. We're pushing a lot of that accessibility onto the publishers, and some of them are actually rising to the occasion. EBSCOhost has really put accessibility in their forefront of their new interface, for example, or at least lead them to an HTML version, which usually works a lot better with screen readers just in general. If you do have to use scanned documents or you're uploading PDFs that you've downloaded from the library, triage making those accessible, right? Focus on major issues with tag content, OCR, color contrast, alternative text. Again, if you upload them, if you are uploading them, you actually have that additional accessibility alternative formats from Panorama, which can really be helpful to students with some learning disabilities, and to create your own documents with accessibility in mind going forward. Finally, we've got a bunch of different tools. Crystal has worked on a lovely page from accessibility tools from Flint. ODE has a Panorama knowledge base article that links out to a bunch of different things. The Disability and Access or Disability Access Student Services has a list of how to actually get accessible materials from publishers, especially like textbook content on the Flint intranet. TCLT's Inclusive Teaching Toolkit talks a little bit about, online accessibility, but there's other issues that it talks about as well. UJ Panorama has a help center, and Adobe Acrobat also has an accessibility help page. Except it's not, I will say which is another thing that I'm not a huge fan of with Adobe, is that they're not always the most helpful in those pages. They're kind of written for a more expert user, but I have found quite a few tutorials online as well that kind of get me through some of the nitty-gritty things that are going on there. And now we've got time for questions. Thank you for watching this recorded webinar. Find upcoming webinars to register for at libcal.umflint.edu.